Welcome back. It is Hits and Hoops, episode 5. Me and Big Nish here to break down everything happening in Philadelphia sports, in the NFL in general, in the NBA, in baseball even we probably won't do much hockey, but I might bring it to the table. Nish has brought some soccer to the table. And obviously right now it is March Madness season. It's March. The madness is flowing. I was watching the games all day. Me and Nish both had a couple heartbreak games that we wish we could, have gone back and changed on our brackets. But we got some big upsets right. Nish, which upset that you picked are you most proud of that happened today?
I would say Murray State versus Marquette. I picked Murray State because Morant, dude, is just a beast. Like, that dunk that he had was crazy. So I think a lot of people picked Murray State over Marquette. And then looking on, I have UC Irvine beating Kansas State and then Oregon beating Wisconsin. So,
all right, I like that. I mean, I picked Murray State as well. I also have UC Irvine upsetting Kansas State, and I do not have the Oregon upset. But I liked my pick that I had Louisville versus Minnesota. It wasn't a huge upset as a 10-7, but Louisville is just a well-renowned program. They have a great coach, they have a great system. Everything is in place for them to succeed. And when you look at a team like Minnesota, it's kind of like that underdog feel. When you look at the bracket, like Minnesota versus a Louisville is like, it seems like, Louisville is just going to out tourney them. Louisville has that swagger, has that confidence, has that experience of just that program. And I don't know, I just felt like maybe a lot of people picked Minnesota. I have no idea. I don't really watch much college basketball. I'm going to be right up front with you. That's why I love the tournament, because I love basketball, but I usually just pay attention to, the best players. You mentioned Morant. We're going to get to see Zion Williamson because I'm more of a pro fan. But when tourney time comes, I'm all in. I fill out a bracket with absolutely no information at my availability other than maybe if I Google a few things, ask a couple people, ask a few friends. But it's just, that's why it's so fun. And guys like Morant, Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, Kobe White, they make it fun because they can carry teams. And, it's great to see that and great to discover young guys on unknown teams that are just, high risers in the tourney, and they go into the pros as like, oh, he was the guy that caught fire in the March Madness tourney. So pretty much it's a great tourney, big fan of it, but that's how it goes. That's the gist of it. It's upset city. It's everything. So Nish, let the viewers who are watching us live know what exactly do you think would happen in a situation where the Duke Blue Devils get matched up with their biggest rival, the UNC, North Carolina Tar Heels, UNC, in the finals, in the championship, because that is possible. And that's a huge rivalry in sports. So Nish has a couple thoughts on it that, he shared with me that I'd like people to hear because I think it's very true. And I think it's a good breakdown. So let's hear it, brother.
So I have Duke versus UNC in the final. I have UNC winning. I just think last Friday night's game in the semifinal of the ACC tournament, Duke, Zion Williamson, he dropped 31 points. He was balling and stuff. And then they only won by 1 point. So it's kind of like, it's a rivalry game, so you're not going to get a blowout. I just think North Carolina they can beat Duke, and they have even without Zion Williamson. And I just think Duke is like so top heavy. They have Zion, they have RJ Barrett, they have Cam Reddish and Trey Jones. But other than that, they basically have no bench. They're not a good 3-point shooter. So I think UNC will win if they do meet up. But Duke has to get through their side of the bracket, and so does North Carolina, to see that the ultimate rivals meeting up. So.
Yep, and I too have Duke and UNC, which is why I posed the question. I have Duke winning it, and Nish has UNC. So it'll be interesting to see what happens by the time next week rolls around on the show, and we're chatting about what's happening with our Final Fours and our championships. Right before we get off the topic of March Madness, I'm gonna throw my Final Four out there, and Nish will give his, and we'll really get to talking about who's intact by next week. So mine is Gonzaga, Duke, Tennessee, and North Carolina. It's 3 1 seeds and a 2 seed. Again, like I said earlier, I don't really pay much attention to college basketball, so I'm just picking top seeds and going into things like, wow, an upset is some underdog school versus a high caliber program. So those are my 2 things that I live by. So I'm looking for my upsets to be that, and I'm looking for my championship to be all the top seeds, because I do not have the guts to pick some crazy Final Four Cinderella team. Nish, and then like I said, Duke over UNC is my championship. Nish, give them your Final Four, and obviously we know the championships already, but who's in your Final Four there?
My Final Four is Duke versus Michigan, Tennessee versus UNC, and like I mentioned before, I got Duke, UNC, and then UNC winning it all.
I like it. I think that's a nice Final Four right there. It's just like mine, where it's a bunch of really good teams, and usually that's what you see, the cream of the crop teams. Every once in a while you get your Wichita States that go deep, and Butler, how they went to those smaller schools. They went to the championship 2 years in a row with the team they had, and that's usually not the case. It's usually the top programs, the Louisvilles, the UNCs, the Dukes, the Michigan States, the Michigan. Ohio State was a really good team for a while. Illinois was one of those programs for a while, actually, back early 2000s. So there's those programs that are well renowned, and that you expect. Kansas is another one of them. So those are the things you expect, but at the end of the day, it's really just, like I said, matchup driven, upset driven, crazy. So anything can happen, but talent does prevail, coaching does prevail, and it's usually those top teams. So I like where our heads are at, and we're gonna move into our favorite sport. Well, at least mine, the NFL. NFL free agency. The dust kind of settled. The big names went where they went. Crazy trades went down. Now we're just in that kind of wait for the draft and sign your filler guys. The big moves are done with. My big winner of free agency was the Cleveland Browns. They nabbed Odell Beckham from the New York Giants. They absolutely are a contender to go to the playoffs this year. And I think them, along with the Baltimore Ravens, who I thought were great in the sense that they added Earl Thomas in the place of Eric Weddle, and they added Mark Ingram. I think those 2 pickups will really help that team, which was a playoff team from last year. So the Browns and Ravens, I think, are going to potentially battle for the division. I think the Steelers are one of my losers. They lost Le'Veon Bell. They got rid of Antonio Brown. And the Giants, of course, who got rid of Odell Beckham. And it just seems like those teams are Big Ben and Eli, same draft class. Seems like time's up for those 2 guys. It's time to move on. Their teams really don't want to. They're stuck in this odd period, and I just think it's kind of the beginning of the end for those eras of those quarterbacks. So those 2 teams I didn't really like. It's not that I didn't like what they did exactly, but it's going to take those 2 teams a while to kind of recover from these eras of these old quarterbacks that they kind of have to honor, because they have 4 combined Super Bowls between them. So if you put the good in with the bad and do that. So in free agency, who would you say, obviously I just went over, pretty good answers. So I want to know, do you have a team that you could think of that was a winner in free agency and potentially a loser?
I would say a winner would probably, like you said, the Cleveland Browns. They got Odell Beckham Jr. They got Olivier Vernon from the from the Giants, and you got Baker Mayfield behind center, and then you have Jarvis Landry. So that team they're starting to get away from that 0-16 seasons and the previous losing seasons of the Cleveland Browns, and they're going to be a playoff contender. I don't know about Super Bowl contender. They need to get to the playoffs first, so let's see how that plays out. And then the loser, I would say, would be the New York Giants. Like, just keeping Eli Manning. It's kind of like he's not that good anymore. Even though he has 2 Super Bowl rings, like, he's not that great and stuff. And I don't know why they got rid of Odell Beckham. Like, he's a stud at the wide receiver position. Like, why would you get rid of him? But yeah, the Giants are my losers in free agency.
Yeah, it doesn't really make whole lot of sense. Why you get rid of a talent like that, but it is what it is. But I would say team right here, baby, the Birds. I would say the Eagles were a big winner in their own right in free agency and with some trades. Now, the update on their moves as they stand today are presented here. You got BG, you got Isaac Seumalo, and you got Jason Kelce all signing extensions. And then you bring back guys like Ronald Darby. You bring in Andrew Sendejo. You bring back Deshaun Jackson in a trade. You bring in a guy like Malik Jackson. After you lock up a little core of your own guys, Jason Peters is also another guy they locked up in that core. So it was 3 offensive linemen and Seumalo, Peters, and Kelce, and just solving their contracts, and then also Brandon Graham. And then you go grab a bunch of new additions such as Malik, Deshaun, Andrew Sendejo, LJ Fort, a linebacker that played his best football of his career last season and as a special teams ace, could compete for a job. And then you have Vinny Curry comes back. He signs. So all these moves, do you think that your expectations for the Philadelphia Eagles are rising back to, well, this could be a team that goes, to the NFC Championship, or is this kind of an offseason where you just think, they didn't really make any significant moves in that way?
It's like the question, do they really need to make any significant moves? They're just, getting depth at positions. Like, I think they did really well. They had a good free agency, not like the caliber of the Raiders or the Browns, but they got pieces like you said, Deshaun, Malik, depth players like Andrew Sendejo, and bringing back Vinny Curry is big because we don't know the situation about Chris Long if he's going to stay or retire. So I think the Eagles and Howie Roseman did a pretty good job bringing in core guys and depth guys. The one thing I don't get is why people are questioning what Howie's doing. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's trying to get the team better. He's not going to try and spend ridiculous amount of money on like a Le'Veon and Antonio Brown, because you can address those positions either in free agency or the draft. So it's kind of like, let him do his thing and let's roll into training camp and then preseason and then the regular season and see how the team is gonna be. Like, there's no need to judge the team right now and in late March and early April. So
yep, and we're gonna get to see the draft, and what they do in the draft is gonna be crucial. Vinny Curry coming back for 2.2 mil today, and Ronald Darby coming back for about 8.75 or so for a 1-year deal. 2 moves that surprised people, I would say, for sure. I didn't think Ronald Darby was coming back. And I think a lot of Eagles Twitter, including yourself potentially, didn't know for sure or think that Darby had a chance to come back to the team. And then the Vinny Curry move surprised us a little bit. That's $11 million, 8.75 and 2.25 or whatever it was. That's 11 million or so, spent. Do you think that trading Michael Bennett, because he might have demanded around that same Brandon Graham $12 million a year price tag for a defensive end, after having a great season with us, do you think that they should have paid Bennett that money, or do you like bringing back Ronald Darby and Vinny Curry?
I like bringing back Ronald Darby and Vinny Curry because they'd been here for a few years, and Vinny was here from like 2012 to 17, so he kind of knows the defense, and so does Ronald Darby. I think, yeah, Michael Bennett, he played well, but he's 33 and he's kind of aging, so I think trading him was the right move, and bringing back like somebody who knows Jim Stewart's defense a lot is and who won a Super Bowl is better than bringing in an aging guy. So
Yeah, I agree. And reason is because we got two guys and they have reasonable deals, and um, Darby provides obviously familiarity, but depth, and Curry as well. So I think Michael Bennett would have been good. However, I think that he was more so a short term option, whereas we hope that Darby can be here past this year if he comes back and shows that he can stay healthy and play well and continue to grow. You know, we forget these guys are 25, 26 years old sometimes, and they still have tons of time to grow and become a solid, professional. So we'll see about him. And then Vinny Curry, obviously, really cheap rotational defensive end, going to hustle, going to do the little things for us. Sure, it would have been nice to have Michael Bennett, but keeping that depth, we have guys that can step in. The Eagles have guys that can step in, like Derek Barnett, Brandon Graham, and be those high snap guys that take a lot of the reps. I think it was best to move on from Bennett and figure out an alternative that helped the team in different ways. And I think that was a good way to do that. So I think obviously getting Deshaun Jackson and Malik Jackson is huge as well to help the D line. So I think we more than replenished the D line by this time, and the draft hasn't even happened. So I would still like to see them maybe draft a D lineman. But as far as cornerback goes, bringing back Ronald Darby was something that, like I said, not many people thought was possible. My initial reaction was, what's going on? I don't really understand this. We have, a handful of cornerbacks, but it seems they just want as much competition there as possible. So you go down the list and you say Darby, Mills, Maddox, LeBlanc, Jones, and Douglas. Those are your cornerbacks. Out of those guys, say those are the guys. Do you think that they should add anything to that group, trade one of them, or stay put with those guys and have them compete, all six of them, have them compete in training camp for the jobs?
I think we should keep them because we kind of saw some of them of what they did towards the end of the year last year in the postseason. We're kind of still on the fence with Sidney Jones because he's kind of been a little bit injury prone as well. So this upcoming year is big for them. So maybe bringing in drafting somebody would be the best. Maybe push those guys a little bit and have that guy be the practice squad player. But right now, I think the quarterbacks are solid right now.
I agree. I think that the cornerbacks there's flaws, and they have a tendency to get injured. So having more of them than not is really crucial. I think that to the team's development and just going forward, needing more time to evaluate these guys. I don't think you should add anything in high rounds such as the first or the second round. I don't think you add a corner in there. I think you need a year to really evaluate Sidney Jones. He wasn't healthy last year. Ronald Darby got hurt, was a solid corner, not great. I mean, you obviously see guys get beat and immediately people think that means he's not good. And I know that's obviously how it works, but it's just every corner gets beat. So you really have to see what the little things these guys do and just understand, how hard the position is in general. And I think that guys like Darby, Mills, who have just been here for a couple of years, Mills was also hurt last year. We look at them and say they're not good, but you bring in guys to replace them, and you're probably not going to get any guys that are better. You're not going to have continuity in your secondary. And I think it's a big thing for us to just build camaraderie and a core in the secondary that can play together for a long time, that can develop, and that hopefully develops into a very potent group of talent that comes from developing together and winning a Super Bowl earlier in their career. So I hope we really weed out this corner situation, and I think it's the right thing to do to have them all compete for jobs for sure. At this point, you know, you got them all in there. You might as well have them compete and see what they got, so we can go forward and um, you know, move in the right direction at the position. So that's kind of the situation at corner. Obviously, we're still waiting on a running back. Is there a running back you have in mind as far as potentially just, you know, slipping this in there? Is there a running back on the market right now? Free agency, not trades. Someone that's available right now that you'd like to see the Eagles potentially make a move for?
Not that I can think of right now. Like you said, no trade, so I was kind of thinking of Jordan Howard and Duke Johnson, but I guess like
Yeah, I would say maybe TJ Yeldon as far as somebody that's on the market. The
yeah,
Jack running back, but those two, obviously, I mean, to me,
depends on what's gonna take to get them. Like
right.
even more what we have to give up.
Yep. And maybe the, you know, the Bears or the Browns wait a little closer to the draft, and then they start to kind of not panic, but just think like, well, we might as well get whatever we can get for these guys because the draft is coming up, and you know, we're narrowing down our positions and things like that more. And I think potentially you could see the Browns, you could see the Bears get into that mode where they're like, okay, we need to make this trade. And you could maybe see the Eagles trade for a running back in the future here. I mean, I don't know if it makes sense for them not to sign a guy before the draft, but if they don't, then you know for a fact they are going for a running back in the draft. And it's just, to me, it's like, I don't know if that's like really great to tip your hand that way. So it's more like Howie to get a guy before the draft so that you can, you know, prepare for the draft to be flexible. And we'll see. I guess we'll see what they do. Maybe they make a draft day trade. Who knows? But I think, you know, digesting all of this Eagles movement of the roster, and it kind of leads you into expectations for the season. So, you know, I think you have a little bit of something for us on that a little later in the episode, but we're going to hit what to watch first, and then you can talk a little bit about your expectations, because I'm really interested to hear. When, you know, you said that, I was like, okay, let's, you know, the schedule's not even out yet, and you're going to drop some predictions. So I like that. But for me this weekend, what to watch, I like, there's not a lot because of March Madness, and we already talked about that, but I personally love D'Angelo Russell. He's my favorite player in the league right now. Well, him and Steph Curry. Curry's just like so good. You know, it doesn't even matter that I liked him since college. He's just like a global superstar now. So I had to go back and grab, you know, a young guy that I'm going to be a fan of. And I love D'Angelo Russell's game, and he's really elevated it this year. So he's one of my guys, that one of my favorite players, and he plays his old team in LA tomorrow, the Lakers. So I can't wait to see that. And then I think UC Irvine versus Kansas State is going to be so fun to watch for me, because I picked UC Irvine, so I love rooting for that upset. And the 3 number 1 seeds all play tomorrow: Duke, UNC, and Virginia. Whereas Gonzaga played tonight in the first, you know, set of games. So the 3-1 seeds, we get a good look at Zion Williamson's first tournament action. UNC, they're fighting for the chance to play each other for a 4th time this year. So that's going to be fun to watch those teams tip off and get things underway. What do you got for us as far as what to watch this weekend, bro?
I got Thunder versus Raptors. You know, it's a pretty big game for seeding wise. You got Oklahoma City, who's sitting at the 8th spot right now, and you have the Raptors, who are sitting at the 2 spot in the East, but are 2 games behind the Bucks for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So it's kind of like one of those big games could determine how teams are going to lead up to the playoffs and how they're going to play in the playoffs. So that's a pretty big game. And then another game that I'm pretty interested in is Mexico versus Chile. It's an international soccer game, so it's kind of like seeing these players in action, and, you know, because right now it's international break, so just seeing soccer is interesting for me and other people who are interested in it. And then you have Netherlands and Germany, which is one of the two biggest nations in the world in soccer. So it's a big rivalry. So seeing them against each other is pretty cool. So those are my games to watch this weekend.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm just very excited for March Madness. So I probably will be watching a lot of that.
For sure.
And, but other things that, take a break, you get some soccer, you get some
NBA
basketball, NBA basketball, exactly. So I love March Madness. I love watching March Madness, but sometimes a break is necessary, and there's people that aren't fans of basketball and don't watch the tournament at all. So there's some suggestions from us, and our final statements before getting off. Speaking of NBA, I have some update on a team from Philadelphia that, not an update, but I think the expectations of the 76ers has changed for me. I think this is a team that can make a deep playoff run. They beat the Bucks. They beat the Celtics. Big, close games, too. Really just got it done. And I saw a team inspired. I saw a team that knows how to win games. They are actually the best team in the NBA when it comes to games that come down to a 5-point margin within the last 5 minutes of the game. That's an actual metric that a lot of teams fit into as far as number of games played that scenario happens. For instance, the Golden State Warriors are 19-14 in games that come down to 5 minutes in the game, and it's a 5-point margin, whether you're up 5 or down 5. So those are just close games. Can you close a game out? Up 5, do you put your foot on the other team's throat? Down 5, do you come back and rally and win? So the Sixers being 29-12 in those types of games shows me they can win in the playoffs. They're figuring things out. They're a team that has a coach that gets very criticized a lot, but this guy's done a really good job with this talent, finally getting it. And I think Brett Brown does deserve credit for that as well. It's a really good way to measure coaching and heart and determination and confidence, really. And I think that the Sixers have all that. I think they can make a deep playoff run, and I think that's my expectation, that they go to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. Some way, somehow, they get to that point. Whereas before I thought that was probably their ceiling. Now I want that to be their floor. The ceiling could be a finals appearance if they can get it done. So I think they have what it takes. You have Joel Embiid playing just as well as Kawhi Leonard, playing just as well as Giannis. And then you have just a stacked roster behind those guys. So him and Ben Simmons, they finally got, 2 more pieces and some nice bench pieces that can play with them. So I think they have what it takes. I think I don't think that they're going to win the finals, but I think getting there and at least getting the Eastern Conference Finals is really something I expect from the Sixers this year. And we'll see what happens, but that's my expectation for the Sixers. And then we already talked a little bit about what the Eagles running back situation is like. I think they're going to draft a guy. I just wanted to mention that, but we kind of already chatted about that, so we covered it. Nish, what's your final thoughts here?
My final thought is, just going, just making an early prediction about the Eagles' upcoming season. The schedule hasn't come out yet, but it's never too early to make predictions about the upcoming season. So I have the Eagles going 12-4 in next season. They play against the AFC East and they play against the NFC North, and then they have those other games against the division. So I think the Eagles are gonna win the division. They're gonna get the number 1 seed, and they're gonna host the NFC Championship game, and they're gonna go to the Super Bowl. So,
wow.
Like Alshon said yesterday, I'll see you in the Super Bowl.
Well, he did. Alshon Jeffrey and Jalen Mills both said we're healthy. It's time to get back to the Super Bowl. Alshon said, see you in Miami. That's where the Super Bowl's at. This team, I think, is motivated, and I can't wait. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great season. I'll have my predictions a little later on. I got to kind of digest all these moves. We haven't even hit the draft yet, but Nish sees a team inspired, a team with another flame in them, and a team that's getting a lot of players back to full health, participating fully in this offseason coming up. And I think that's huge and will go a long way for us. And we've seen Doug Peterson and this team rally around players, backups and guys that get inserted in. So even through injury, we can win games still. We've proven that 2 years in a row now. So I think it's time to see what they can do. And if they can host that NFC Championship, getting the 1 seed at 12-4, that would be incredible. I'm Tom Stakes.
I'm Big Nish.
He is Big Nish. This is Branded Sports presenting Hits and Hoops. This was episode number 5, March Madness edition. We gave our predictions. We talked a little birds, slipped in some Sixers, talked a little bit of NFL, NBA playoff picture with some of our suggestions to watch. We gave it all to you. Signing off. We will see you on Twitter. We'll see you on whatever channel you're on. Hit us up. We will catch you later.
Yep. See everybody.
Peace.